Let me be brutally honest with you for a second. The headline you've been desperately waiting to see is finally here, but it's not the one you think it is. I can see it now. Your heart is probably racing. Your mind is swirling with visions of life-changing wealth and an overnight financial revolution because you just heard the phrase, Dinar RV finally published in the Gazette. Let's just pause right there and take a deep, collective breath, because what I'm about to tell you will either shatter your illusions or finally empower you with the cold, hard truth, and you need to decide right now which one you value more, the comforting fairy tale or the empowering reality. The fact of the matter is, yes, something has been published in official gazettes regarding the Iraqi Dinar, and yes, this is a significant and real piece of news, but the crucial, earth-shattering context that every single one of you must understand is that this publication has absolutely nothing to do with an international revaluation of the currency's exchange rate. Let that sink in for a moment. The entire online ecosystem of dinar speculation, with its gurus and its cryptic, hope-filled updates, has latched onto a kernel of truth and twisted it into a monumental falsehood. And today we are going to surgically separate the fact from the fiction using nothing but publicly available, verifiable data. So, if you're ready to transition from being a passive hopeful into an informed investor, then you need to stick with every single word of this, because the real story is far more nuanced and, in many ways, more important for the future of Iraq than any fictional RV could ever be. First, we have to establish a common language. What does RV, or revaluation, actually mean in a global economic context? It's not simply the currency gaining value. A true revaluation is a formal, deliberate decision by a country's monetary authority, like the Central Bank of Iraq, to adjust the official exchange rate of its currency upwards against a baseline, like the US dollar. And this new rate is then recognized and traded on the global foreign exchange markets, the Forex. It is a transparent, publicly declared financial event that would be broadcast by every major financial news outlet in the world, Reuters, Bloomberg, CNBC, instantly. It would not be a secret hidden in a government document. Now, what is this Gazette we keep hearing about? This is a legitimate question. A government gazette is essentially the official journal or bulletin of a state where all new laws, regulations, public notices, and legal announcements are formally published to become effective. It is the primary source for legal promulgation. So, when people claim the RV is in the Gazette, they are technically pointing to a real thing, but they are catastrophically misinterpreting what that thing says. So what was actually published? Let's get into the data. If you go to the official Iraqi Government Gazette portal, specifically Gazette number 9747 from late 2023, you will find a document titled Deletion of Zeros. This document, along with subsequent notices, outlines a massive and logistically staggering project that the Central Bank of Iraq has been working on for years: the issuance of new currency notes and the gradual withdrawal of the old ones. This is a demonetization process, not a revaluation. The new notes, which you can see pictures of, feature updated security features and a modernized design. Crucially, and this is the most important point everyone misses, the face value of these new notes is directly equivalent to the old ones. A new 50,000 dinar note is worth exactly the same as an old, worn-out 50,000 dinar note. It is a one-to-one swap. The deletion of zeros refers to the nominal value printed on the note. For example, a new note might be called 50 dinars instead of 50,000 dinars, but its purchasing power and its exchange rate against the dollar remain precisely, mathematically, unchangeably the same. This process is about simplifying financial transactions within Iraq for everyday citizens and combating physical cash logistics issues, not about making international speculators rich. Yet, the rumor mill ignores this blatant reality. They point to the serial numbers on the new notes, claiming certain, lucky, sequences are a secret signal. They talk about a non-existent Iraqi Freedom and Liberation Act, or a hidden H.R. 1127 document that supposedly mandates the RV. Let me be unequivocal. These documents, in the context they are presented, are complete fabrications. A simple search on the U.S. Congress website for H.R. 1127 will show you it's a bill from over a decade ago related to something entirely different. The entire narrative is built on sand, designed to keep you hooked on the next Intel update and to sell you more discounted currency. So, I have to ask you a critical question as we stand at this crossroads of information and misinformation. If the official publication in the Gazette is definitively, provably about replacing old physical money with new physical money and has zero connection to the exchange rate, then where does that leave the dream of the RV? The answer is not that the opportunity is dead. The answer is that you have been looking at the entirely wrong target. The real story, the real potential for Iraq's economy and, by extension, its currency's long-term value, is far more complex and is rooted in something much more substantial than a Gazette notice. So, if the Gazette publication was a red herring, a massive distraction from the truth you actually need, you're now facing the most critical question of this entire journey. Where should you actually be looking? If the secret to life-changing wealth isn't hidden in a serial number or a leaked government file, then what signal could possibly be strong enough to cut through all this noise and give you a real, tangible sign of progress? The answer, while far less glamorous than a conspiracy theory, is infinitely more powerful and reliable, and it lies in the brutal, unfeeling, and transparent world of macroeconomic data and tangible, on-the-ground political action. Let's make a pact right now to stop chasing shadows and start following the money. The real money, the billions of dollars in international investment and oil revenue that actually dictate a nation's economic strength. The true revaluation of the Iraqi dinar will not be announced in a whisper on a forum. It will be screamed from the rooftops by every major financial institution on the planet, and it will be the inevitable, undeniable culmination of three concrete pillars being firmly placed: political stability, economic diversification, and global financial integration. Think of it this way. A country cannot simply decide its currency is worth 1,000 times more overnight. The global market would laugh it out of existence. The value must be earned through demonstrable, sustained, and credible progress, and that progress leaves a massive paper trail that we can analyze together right now. Let's start with the most fundamental driver of any economy: oil. Iraq sits on one of the largest proven oil reserves in the world, and this black gold is the primary source of its hard currency earnings. But here's the critical nuance that most speculators completely ignore. It's not just about pumping more oil. The real story is about the financial frameworks being built around that oil. For decades, the majority of Iraq's oil revenue was held in the New York Federal Reserve in an account known as the Development Fund for Iraq, DFI, which was granted sovereign immunity under U.S. Chapter 7 provisions, a legacy of the post-invasion era. However, that immunity officially expired in mid-2023. This was a seismic event. Why? Because it forced Iraq to finally, after years of delay, stand on its own 2 feet financially. It compelled the Central Bank of Iraq to aggressively pursue a true market-driven exchange rate, moving away from a heavily subsidized official rate. We have the data to prove this shift. Throughout 2023, we saw the official CBI rate and the parallel market rate violently converge, causing temporary volatility but ultimately creating a more realistic and unified national exchange rate. This was not the RV. This was the painful, necessary chemotherapy to rid the economy of a cancerous distortion, and it was a prerequisite for any future, legitimate strength. It's the equivalent of tearing down a crumbling foundation before you can pour a new, stronger one. It looks messy and destructive, but it is the first essential step toward building something stable. Now, let's pivot to the second pillar, the frantic, real-world efforts to wean the economy off its total reliance on oil. This is where the narrative gets genuinely exciting. You want proof of change? Look at the massive infrastructure projects that are finally moving from blueprints to reality. The Grand Fall port in Basra is not a rumor. It's a multi-billion-dollar mega-project that, upon completion, will be one of the largest ports in the Middle East, transforming Iraq into a crucial regional trade hub. The Iraq-Jordan pipeline and the ongoing discussions with international giants like Total Energies for energy projects represent tens of billions of dollars in foreign direct investment that is contingent on a stable Iraq. This isn't forum speculation. This is Reuters and Bloomberg reporting on signed memoranda of understanding and construction milestones. Every single one of these projects does two things. It creates jobs and infrastructure inside Iraq, and, just as importantly, it signals to the global investment community that Iraq is open for serious business. This slowly, methodically builds confidence. And confidence is the invisible fuel that drives currency value. Furthermore, the new banking regulations that the CBI is implementing, aimed at combating money laundering and aligning with international standards like SWIFT, are another dry, bureaucratic, yet utterly essential piece of the puzzle. These measures are designed to stop the illicit siphoning of dollars out of the country and to make the Iraqi financial system a trustworthy partner for international correspondent banks. Without this trust, Iraq remains a financial pariah, and its currency remains isolated. So, I put it to you, isn't the progress on the Grand Fall port, a project you can see with satellite imagery, a more credible indicator of Iraq's economic future than a blurry screenshot of a supposed Gazette notice from an anonymous insider? So, we've dismantled the false Gazette narrative, and we've laid out the real, tangible pillars of economic progress. The convergence of exchange rates, the massive infrastructure projects, and the arduous climb toward global financial compliance. This brings us to the ultimate, inescapable crossroads, the moment of truth that separates the dreamers from the strategists. You now possess a clear choice. You can either continue to be swept along by the emotional riptide of every new intel drop from self-proclaimed gurus who have been wrong for over a decade, or you can pivot to a new, evidence-based mindset and start viewing your potential investment not as a lottery ticket, but as a high-risk, long-term geopolitical bet on the future of a nation. Let's be brutally pragmatic for a moment. The hypothetical, astronomical revaluation to $3 or more is a fantasy that defies every law of economics. It would instantly vaporize Iraq's economy, making its exports unaffordable and plunging its population into immediate, hyperinflationary poverty. The real, plausible future, and the one you should be focusing on, is a gradual, hard-fought appreciation of the dinar's value over the next 5 to 10 years as the country's economic fundamentals genuinely improve. This is the sobering reality. The question is no longer, when is the RV? The only question that matters now is, do I have the patience, the capital I can truly afford to lose, and the intellectual discipline to wait for a genuine economic turnaround? And if so, what should I be watching for right now? Let's talk about the specific, real-world triggers that should make you sit up and take notice, the kind that move markets and change the fates of nations. Forget about Gazette notices. You need to be monitoring the financial news for two key events. First, watch for the official announcement from the International Monetary Fund or a major credit rating agency like S&P Global or Moody's that Iraq has successfully concluded a standby arrangement or has received a sovereign credit rating upgrade, however slight. This is not a rumor. This is the global financial system formally acknowledging that Iraq has implemented sufficient reforms to be considered a more credible borrower. That single announcement would do more for the dinar's long-term value than 1,000 guru videos. Second, and perhaps more importantly, you need to watch for the day when the Central Bank of Iraq officially announces the full, successful completion of the currency swap project, the deletion of zeros, and then, separately, announces a change to its monetary policy framework, explicitly shifting its focus to defending a new, stronger exchange rate and building substantial foreign exchange reserves. This would be a process reported in the financial sections of the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times, not in a private YouTube group. These are the signals of a mature, stable economy, and they are the only signals that matter. This entire journey has been about equipping you with the intellectual armor to navigate a landscape flooded with disinformation. The path to potential profit is not paved with secret documents and lucky serial numbers. It is built on the slow, unsexy, but undeniable foundation of economic reality. You now have the tools to see through the noise. You can verify Gazette entries yourself. You can track oil production figures and budget reports from the Iraqi Ministry of Oil. And you can follow the progress of the Grand Fall port through international construction journals. The power is now in your hands to be an informed participant, not a helpless victim of hype. And this is where I need you to take action. If this video has fundamentally shifted your perspective, if it has pulled you out of the cycle of hope and despair and given you a concrete, analytical framework to assess this situation, then you need to do something for me and for this community right now. First, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because this is where we deal in reality, not fairy tales. Second, and this is the most important part, I want you to share your biggest takeaway from this deep dive in the comments below. Tell me, are you now looking at the Iraqi Dinar investment completely differently? What real-world indicator will you be watching from now on? Your engagement in that comment section is what tells the YouTube algorithm that this kind of serious, evidence-based content is valuable, and it helps me reach other people like you who are tired of the lies and hungry for the truth. Let's build a community of informed investors, not hopeful speculators. The conversation starts now, down in the comments. I'll be there reading every single one.